Welcome to Unit 10. Unit 10 covers impairment of assets. We're looking at IAS 36 concerning non-financial assets and later IAS 39 on financial assets. So firstly, under 36, you'll be looking at whether the asset is within the scope of IAS 36. Some assets such as inventory aren't covered, they're covered by their own standard. Is there an indicator of impairment? That's what you'll be looking for. If it is impaired, then the asset's value is written down and an expense is recognised. And there are special rules that apply if you're dealing with what's called a cash generating unit. So we're looking for indicators of impairment. And that occurs when the carrying amount of the asset is greater than its recoverable amount. So that's when we have an impairment loss. The recoverable amount is calculated as being the higher of the asset's fair value less costs of disposal. So there's a link back here to Unit 6 on fair value measurement. And the asset's value in use, and that might be determined using a net present value calculation. So cash generating units, that might be, for example, a division. So a CGU is the smallest identifiable group of assets that generate cash inflows that are largely independent of the cash inflows from other assets or groups of assets. So when we have a cash generating unit, we work out the impairment loss at that level, and then we have to do some allocations down to individual assets within that cash generating unit, again, such as a division. So there are special rules for determining when to test assets individually and when to test at the CGU level. So when you calculate the impairment loss at the CGU level, it's then allocated to the assets within the CGU that can be subject to impairment. Firstly, any impairment loss is allocated to goodwill. Then there might be some assets that just aren't subject to impairment. Again, inventory, because it's got its own rules for measurement under IAS 2. And then the remaining impairment loss is allocated to other CGU assets on a proportionate basis based on their carrying amount. And in applying those rules, what IAS 36 tells us that there is a limit. You can't reduce an asset below the highest of its fair value less cost of disposals, if you know it, its value in use, and zero. So practicing activities and worked examples in this unit is really important to see how these rules apply.